Okay, if everyone would take their seats, we're going to hear from Kirsten Cook, who has been heading up the young worker organizing at the AFL-CIO and played a strong role in the recent Young Workers Summit. So we thank Kirsten for being with us, and I want to, just before we begin, say that we'll have a panel, and then we'll break out into discussion groups and do an inventive sort of report back, we hope. So why don't we get going with the afternoon?
Good afternoon, everyone. That was weak. Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. That's a little bit better. All right, so I know you might be a little sleepy because of lunch, so try not to nod off. The pasta salad was mighty delicious. So I'm here to kind of set the stage for the next conversation. And I think it's a wonderful pivoting point for where we left, whereas what are we going to do with the labor movement, young people, and the Occupy Wall Street movement? And I think we're at this incredible opportunity, right? We've heard about the decline in union membership, the obstacles that young people are facing economically in the world, and the growing Occupy movement that may not have some of the traditional elements that we are looking for, but it's a movement that is spurring conversation, that is changing the fabric of how our political system is operating. But we're at this great pivot point in history, right? So we have the decline in union density, mass economic inequity, attacks on workers across the country, and the rising cost of education, which is becoming an economic burden of indentured servitude of an entire generation that was equal $1 trillion. It has exceeded credit card debt, and as my good friend Chris from SLAP has said, it's a bubble that's going to pop, and we need to address these issues before they become overwhelmingly over problems we cannot overcome. And so we're in this time where how do we engage more young people to a union movement that they don't know much about? My grandfather was in a union. The benefits that his union provided him allowed my father and his brothers and sisters to go to college, all 5 of them, in a segregated Louisiana. Allowed my father to become a physician. It allowed me to go to college. And now I'm back in the labor movement. But my understanding of the labor movement before I got there was next to nothing. And I think a lot of young people across this country may have a false perception of the labor movement because no one has taken the time to educate us on it. And so we can say, young people, they don't know enough about unions. Or we can say, what a wonderful opportunity do we have to educate people on unions and write the narrative that says the labor movement stands for working people in this country and young people should be a part of that. Another component that we need to look at is how can the labor movement attract young people and utilize and partner with the Occupy Wall Street movement in an effective way, even though it's so different than what we've traditionally looked at. And I think, quite honestly, that the labor movement and the Occupy movement and young people is a perfect marriage, and that there are incredible opportunities and similarities of what's going on, and it just takes us a little bit of a moment to step back, to say, I may not recognize what's going on. It may not have a leader, which is something I'm not used to. It may not have objectives, which is something that I am not used to as well. But it is fundamentally changing the conversation in American politics. Now, we saw recently the talks of austerity and budget cuts that dominated the conversation for the last 6 months. Because of the Occupy movement, we're talking about economic inequity. We're talking about investing in communities. And I think what we're seeing is very similar to the labor movement. The cornerstone of what we do is collective bargaining. Union members on one side of the table, managers on the other side of the table. We have very specific asks, and then we work to build a contract between management and labor that fits the needs of everybody, right? That is how you collectively bargain within an economic institution. And this is my personal opinion with Occupy Wall Street and the similarities I see within collective bargaining. We were sold, my generation, every generation, on this American dream. That you had the opportunity, if you work hard, you can go to school, you do all the right things, you can get ahead in the world, and that you'll do better than your parents were. Let's call this a social contract that the American society sold us all on and we all bought into. We all worked hard. We all worked hard in high school, and we all strive to go to college so that we can move forward in the world and do the things that we want to do. Occupy Wall Street is basically an open collective bargaining session, not for financial contract negotiations, but for the social contract that is American society. And the social contract is not based on pensions and health care and wages. It's based on values. It's based on the values that we want our country and our democracy to stand for. And those values were the foundation of the American dream, that we all did better collectively, that we looked out for our neighbors, that we were part of a community, that it had an element of fairness to it, that if you did what was right, you did what was just, you provided for your family, you had an opportunity to succeed. That contract is null and void anymore. We are in a broken system, and that social contract has been broken. And the values that Occupy movement is built around is about bringing equity back to the system. It's about making sure that we value people over the corporate profits of a very small number of corporations. And I think in that sense, there's a perfect marriage just waiting to happen between the Occupy movement and the labor movement, because we are collectively bargaining. In Oakland, with a general strike, because they're not going to take what's going on anymore, to Zuccotti Park, to Los Angeles and London and all the other countries that the Occupy movement is in, and in the G20. And the values that we are going to push for are supported by the very specific acts, which I do believe the Occupy movement will come to, just like every other social movement. So whether it's a financial transactions tax, that's not just a win in terms of policy. That's a step in a win in terms of valuing, taxing those who have so much so we can provide for those who have too little. My job at the AFL-CIO is to build a program and a change in mentality within the labor movement to engage young people, both union and non-union, to change the way that we communicate both in traditional media and in online media, and to build allies for the labor movement that exceed just rank and file union members. Under the leadership of Secretary Treasurer Schuler, we convened 800 people in Minneapolis to talk about the future of the labor movement. And it was an amazingly empowering event that I was lucky enough to be a part of, and that when we created a space for young people in the labor movement, they blew the doors off the building. And they were the first to say, this Occupy movement is important. It's going to change what we do. We need to issue a statement of support. Prior to walking into Minneapolis in late September, the Occupy movement was there. We weren't really engaged in it. We didn't know what was going on. But an overwhelming amount of support led by Mary Clinton here helped us push that and have the labor movement and the federation say, we're going to support this because it's protecting the values that we have always protected. Because the labor movement is about protecting the 99%. And I would like to kind of close before we bring on the panel, who I think you much rather hear from than me. Quote from A. Philip Randolph is that the essence of trade unionism is social uplift. The labor movement has been a haven for the dispossessed, the despised, the neglected, and the downtrodden and the poor. We have consistently stood for the 99%. We will continue to stand for the 99%, both union and non-union alike, to protect the values that we all hold dear. And with that, I'm going to introduce our speakers. Stefan Lerner is a union organizer for over 30 years. He's an architect of a groundbreaking Justice for Janitors campaign, in which mobilization of janitors internationally to raise wages and increase basic benefits and job security in Los Angeles paved the way for a nationwide success. Stefan works with community, union, and other groups across the country, mobilizing them to take action and break decades-long strongholds of Wall Street and big banks have had on our economy and democracy.
I'm a big bank star, super wink star. Give me all your money, give me all your money.
For some Wall Street swine, stealing trillions and crashing the economy just isn't enough. They want every house on the block. But homeowners across America have had enough.
The family and I have decided to take a stand, and we will not be leaving the home. This is our home, and this is our American dream, and we refuse for the bank to take it away.
In 2009, Rose's brother passed away, and California budget cuts reduced her hours at work. She missed a single mortgage payment.
I was 2 weeks late to make my payment. I walked into the bank to try to give them my 2-week payment, and they refused to take it.
Instead, One West Bank and Fannie Mae forced her into a loan modification program.
At that point, I'm sending all the paperwork, and they're just saying, you know, we're missing this, we're missing that, you know, you never sent this. And it's just constantly sending paperwork back to them, and then until suddenly they just say, you know what, we're just going to foreclose on your home because there's nothing we can do.
So she joined ACE, the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, called her union the Service Employees International, and together, with her neighbors, they kicked off a good old-fashioned occupation.
We're going to wait it out until the sheriffs come in and try to take us out. We'll be here. We're going to be here.
Rose, her neighbors, and thousands of California homeowners took the fight right to the bankster's doorstep.
The bank foreclosed on my house even though I was making my HAMP payments. And it's just not fair that they should be making billions of dollars in bonuses while people are becoming homeless and losing everything.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to fight.
You can lock your doors all you want to, but you can't keep truth out. You can't keep right out. And you can't foreclose on justice.
We gotta take the power back. Come on, come on. We gotta take the power back. We got sold out. Banks got bailed out. 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 We got sold out. This is what democracy looks like. We want our money back. 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 We want our money back.
Fannie Mae and One West Bank have decided that they're going to come to the table and negotiate a loan modification, and the sheriffs have also confirmed that they will not be evicting us from our home.
How do you feel?
Wonderful! Woo!
I don't want to say I don't want to make anybody mad, because actually maybe I do, because you're heading to workshops. And so I want to sort of stir it up a little bit, be a little bit provocative, and, you know, in the spirit of Occupy, not necessarily be polite about all of this. So first, any reaction to the video? What did she say at the end? Could you hear what she said at the very end? What did she do? What did she say? She said, we won. That something amazing happened. That a bunch of people, and what were all those people doing at the bank? Were they walking in circles politely? What were they doing? Well, what were they laying down? Were they sitting in? What was the theme of this video? They were saying, take me to jail. This woman, her mother, dozens of people went to jail. They said, you will not take my home. They said, you will not take it. And it was very interesting what happened, which is that Occupy, so this is a union member, she's going to lose her home. Occupy and the union said, let's do something together, which on the one hand may seem small, which is saving one person's home, but going back to what Francis said, I know you probably couldn't read the small print, but what it was really about was let's tackle the idea that the banks who got trillions in bailouts can now steal people's homes. So it's sort of this wonderful meshing of something little and small. I want to come back to that, but I just want to hit this note. What were people saying they were willing to do? I just want to, it's after lunch. Where were they willing to go? Where were they willing to go? I just want to come back to that because I think in this meeting we've sort of haven't really hit that if Occupy and the labor movement were talking about let's have a meeting and let's give a speech and have better words, it would be a lot like the labor movement. Versus this notion of civil disobedience, the notion that the thing is broken, we have to put our bodies on the line. So I want to come back to that, but I only have a few minutes. So let me say a couple things. I think we need to be, I agree with everything you said about this being the moment. This is a time we've waited our lifetime for, but we have to be incredibly honest. And so I've spent my lifetime in the labor movement. And the labor movement at this point in history is we're on defense, we're being defeated, we're too trapped in our traditional relationships, in the buildings, the fear of being sued, for us to play the historic role many of us would like us to play. I just think we have to be honest about that. That's not good or bad, that's the facts. That we are sort of trapped where we are. So what's so important about Occupy and the growing movement is it offers the opportunity to radicalize the labor movement in this country in a different way, not because they're saying to the labor movement, you should behave differently, but by demonstrating through action what actually works. And that, to me, is what's so key about this time here. And so I just want to throw out a couple specific ideas and then come to maybe some things to think about in the workshop, which is one, let me just do a survey. Who here thinks that Occupy would be the same place it is now if it hadn't been for the Brooklyn Bridge? Anybody? Who thinks that Occupy would be in the same place if some crazy group of people hadn't said we should have a general strike? In the labor movement, we laughed when they said that, right? We think, how could these crazy people say we should have a general strike in Oakland? It was audacious, it was outrageous, it wasn't really a classic general strike, but did it capture the imagination of a lot of people? Did that notion of going to the port and say, we are interfering with capital, did that capture any of your imagination? If they had announced, we're going to have a general strike in Oakland and we're going to walk in circles in traditional picket lines, would that have inspired any of you? The only reason, I know this is also obvious, but the reason I say that it's so important going forward, because people sort of say, well, what are the demands and what are the goals? Our movement is drowned in demands and bullet points and policy proposals. We have think tanks. We have brilliant people. Our problem is not that we don't have good ideas. Our problem is that we don't have what? Power and action. And so I just think, I don't disagree. I'm so glad there's a group of people who have good ideas and who know if we had power what we'd do. But to me, what this moment about is how we build the power so that we can actually accomplish something. Does that seem like a crazy idea to folks? Just checking. So I wanted to throw out a couple things for folks to ponder. One is, there's a crisis for all of us, yes? For regular people? Is there a crisis for the super rich? So to me, forget everything that's been, if we do not make a crisis for the super rich and the banks in Wall Street, do they have any incentive to change their behavior? So really what our job is to help them be better human beings, right? We want to incentivize them, and there's only one way we can do that, which is disrupt their ability to be incredibly rich and powerful. Does that seem like a radical idea? The system is working for them. It is working brilliantly. It is working wonderfully. It is extraordinary. They're the richest people in the history of the globe. And when we say the American dream is broken and all this, they say, no, the American dream is really good. I dreamed about a moment where 400 people could control more wealth than whatever the number is. So I think, one, we have to be clear that our tactics and everything we do has to be about creating a crisis for them. Second, that we can't do it if we're not willing to embrace civil disobedience and mass arrests, that there's no movement from the suffragettes to the abolitionists to any great movement in history that has not been people ready to go to jail. And if folks aren't ready to go to jail, then we won't succeed. And that third, we cannot try to put this into the box of the traditional labor movement because we'll fail on that. So I want to raise two ideas that maybe we should think about that naturally connect Occupy and a broader movement. And I guess my point would be is the labor movement and mass organizing into unions will happen as part of a mass movement. We're not going to build a mass movement by saying, oh, everybody should be in the union. If there's a mass movement about changing this country, then that will create the space that people can organize unions. So one, I just want to raise this idea that people are talking about, of a next stage maybe of being called Occupy My House, which is what this video is referencing, or Occupy My House for the holidays. There's a really nice discussion starting about one of the ways that Occupy could build into